where you're at, and then why you want to do the course, what it is that you're hoping to get out of it at the end of the day. So just in your own words. So I don't know if anybody else would like to start? Or you want to start?
Michelle, Mr. Chair. I'm a complete novice. I've never done meditation before. And the reason I'd like to do it is for relaxation, and I'm really suffering with insomnia and that sort of thing. So I think actually being able to meditate and relax more would help.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Steve, I did do some yoga and some meditation over the summer, which was interesting. And I don't have any idea what to expect here, and why. I've got a very busy mind, constantly busy. Quite nice to get some stillness and some quiet in there.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Agnes. I think I may have done meditation, but a long time ago. I've done yoga, so when I do yoga, I really feel good afterwards. So I'm hoping this will do the same for me. Yeah, that's what I'm
Great. Thanks, Agnes.
Hi, I'm Karen. Yeah, complete virgin to any of this. But you read about it lots and hear it's very good for you. I've had a very busy life. I don't as much now. I suppose I'm a bit more attuned to mindfulness because now I do an awful lot of art, and that really mellows me out. So I'm very aware of that. My son's interested in I'm interested in thought. Why not come together and help each other see if we can crack this?
Great. Thanks, Karen.
I'm Ben, also complete novice. Been doing the Headspace app for like 2 weeks, so I wouldn't say it's still a novice, but a bit more understanding of the process of maybe what's going on in terms of trying to quiet the mind and the why is kind of a lot of anxiety the last couple of years, and really trying to stay out of my head and just stay in the present. And I kind of think doing mindfulness in the morning will set you up for a good way.
Brilliant. Great. Lovely. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll come on to a bit of sort of discussion about, I should say, I'm Nick. So I do this because I started off since childhood really. I've kind of, this course, slight segue, this course is very much about health and well-being. It is about the things you've talked about being able to let go of the stresses and the strains, the worries, the feeling down, and to move out of that space where the chattering mind takes us into kind of dark corners of our mind quite often. I didn't come into this because of that. I came into this because I have quite a spiritual orientation. So to me, Buddhism held more of a calling on the sort of insight side of things. But interestingly, as I started to practice and look in, I realized the very obvious thing, well, it should have been obvious, was that I actually have spent a lot of my life doing my absolute utmost to avoid stress, because I really don't like it and cope with it particularly well. I cope with it much, much better now, but that's something that I hadn't even really acknowledged until I started practicing. But because so much of this work that we're going to be doing is about stilling the mind and being aware of what's going on, you do start to notice far more about the world around you and the world inside you. So, and the reason I decided to train to be a meditation and mindfulness teacher was because, I think primarily because I actually saw how much it had helped me, and I wanted to share it. And actually, to be honest, the greatest joy I've had in this has been the students that I've had who have really taken to it and absorbed it into their lives. So we'll come on to this in a little bit, but there's all sorts of courses and things you can do in life. You know, you can do a pottery course or an art course and things. And how much you get out of any course is directly proportionate to how much you put in. So this is, however, not so much about effort as it is about commitment to regular practice. It's to building the roots, the foundations of a regular practice, and then the fruits of the work will come forth. So I'm really, really hopeful you're all going to grasp this, and I mean, not mentally, I mean, just take it by the horns and really, really run with it, because it has enormously powerful effects on your well-being, and the more you do it, the longer you do it, the more that becomes really, really apparent. I will cover this again right at the end of the course, but this is the beginning of a journey if you choose it to be. So you can do this course, it'll set you up with the basic tools to be a meditator, so that you can go off into the world, wherever you are, and you can meditate. You can use things like Headspace if you want, but you don't need to. You'll be able to just meditate how you like, whenever you like. But there's so much more if you want to engage with it. So I do other courses. I do another course in insight meditation. I also here, usually in this building or the one over the road, fortnightly on Saturdays, I do a drop-in group for Saturday mornings for people to come along, just to have a regular support of doing meditation with a group of people. Because just like this, being part of a group really, really helps in sort of feeling like you're not alone, and it sort of helps build the whole thing up. So throughout the course and after the course, please always feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to have a chat, as long as I'm not working at the time, but you know what I mean? Happy to have a chat and sort of try and iron out any concerns you may have. So, what I'm going to suggest, before we go on to any more chatting, is if you want to just, we're not going to do anything too formal in terms of postures and things, but if you just want to get yourself comfortable, and you're welcome to use the backrest of the seat if you like, but try and have your feet, if you can, flat on the ground. Just feel allow yourself to close your eyes and feel relaxed, having your arms, your hands just in your lap. Just take a moment to just let everything settle. Just sort of really feel like you've arrived here. So taking a moment to notice your breath, just the natural rhythm of the breath. Seeing if you can notice the rise and fall of the belly as you breathe. How long can you keep your attention just on the breath in the belly? And now just noticing the weight of your feet upon the ground, of your backside on the chair, and just bringing your awareness fully to those sensations. Consciously make the decision to just let go of any stress and strain. You may even be able to feel your shoulders drop a little. The tension in your facial muscles loosen. So there's nothing arduous in this course. It's all about learning to help you find more peace and ease. And then when you're ready, just gently opening your eyes, bringing in awareness of the room around you into your consciousness. Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if I close that window?
Do. It's noisy, isn't it? And I did suddenly think you might not be able to hear me very well. I'm not renowned for being quiet. It is noisy. We can always prop that door open if it gets warm again. So, done introductions. Hopefully we'll relaxed just a little bit. So, I thought to start with we'd look at a few terms that we're going to be using to make sure everybody understands the ground that we're treading. So, not used as a term within all schools of meditation and mindfulness. There are a lot of courses on meditation and mindfulness that are called MBSR and MBCT courses, mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. We come from a different tradition. I say we because I've trained under the Zen Master Zen. So the tools are very, very similar, but the training paths are slightly different. So I will be using a few Zen Buddhist terms in this, but don't worry, I'm not trying to convert anybody into becoming a Buddhist. There's nothing, it's all secular, okay? So it's just, this is the context in which we're Zen. Does anybody actually know what Zen means? No, but you're not far off. It actually, it comes from the Sanskrit word jhana, which is spelled in different ways, but that's one of the spellings, jhana. And jhana was converted from Sanskrit in India to the word chan, jhana, chan. And chan is the Chinese, which has become Zen. And it means just meditation. So Zen is a specific branch of Buddhism. So you get lots of Buddhist schools, and some of them are more orientated towards ancient teachings and so on and so forth. Zen is fundamentally and principally about what you can notice within yourself in meditation. There's no real doctrine or anything like that. It's a practice system, okay? So, now meditation, as a good description of it actually, is basically it's a training tool or mental training process that is there to help you overcome the obstacles of what are called, actually they've got all sorts of different names. The Asian name for it is kleshas, which are basically the disturbing mental and emotional thoughts that come into our minds, which we all get all the time, like, you know, anger, frustration, depression, anxiety, fear, jealousy, all of those things that come up. When they come up in the mind, as they so often do, they cloud our perception of reality. Yep. So meditation is a process whereby, and Zen therefore, is a process whereby we learn to allow the mind to be calm. We're not trying to force the mind to stop thinking, because that's a fool's errand. You never succeed to make it happen, but you allow the mind to calm down. You give it the space for it to calm down. And through that you gain a state of equanimity, where you're not really pushed and pulled by the controlling influences of the sensations of life, and you find greater acceptance and awareness in life. Okay? So that's basically meditation. There are different types of meditation. We are doing what one would call probably mainly mindfulness meditation. But meditation can be, it's a bit like, a zoom lens on a camera. You can go in and out of how closely you get to something. So there's a practice or a type of meditation called shamatha, which is focused concentration. So often you might see, if you've ever seen anything like this on television, you might see monks chanting. That's single-pointed meditation on one thing. They're going om mani padme, things like this, and they're going over and over again, or they're staring at a candle. Or staring at a mandala, something like that. So that is focused concentration meditation. To a certain extent, you do that when you follow your breath. You just keep an awareness to the breath. It's a one-pointed process. A more mindful approach to meditation is what we call prajna, or wisdom, which is where, rather than that focused in meditation, you open up to everything that is happening. You are just open and aware. So you can hear the cars travelling past, you can feel the temperature on your skin, the weight of your body, the visual things coming to it. You're open to all your senses, and you're also open to your mind. You're aware of the activities of the mind. Okay? I'm not suggesting you're going to be aware of all of those things 100% all of the time. At least not to start with. But that is the nature of open awareness of the meditation. Now, what you will find, or what you may find, is that the mind will play all sorts of tricks on you. When I started meditation, I remember I had a chair downstairs where I used to go and sit every morning. Nice comfortable armchair. Not the ideal, I have to say, to meditating, but that's what I did. And in the mornings, my wife and 20-year-old son, I was younger then, but would go in and out of the room, going to the kitchen, going here, doing that, making loads of noise and doing all sorts of things. And I was sitting there like, oh God, can't they be quiet? I've told them so many times that I'm meditating, can't they just be more considerate? And of course, what I'm doing, what they're doing is just what they're doing. What I'm doing is causing my own disturbance. So the irony of it was that it took me a while to realise that actually I just had to let the disturbances of the world go on, because I ain't going to stop them. So if you have an open, accepting sense of awareness for meditation, then that is really what we're primarily focusing on here. As I kind of touched on before, there are a couple of types of meditation that we have terms for in Zen. I will only touch on them lightly because... So the first, Bonpu Zen, is what we're doing. Now Bonpu is a term that's used in Japan. So a lot of Zen monasteries will have training programs for lay people who don't want to have any sort of religious thing. Often they're businessmen, businesswomen, sportsmen, who want to really get their shit together. Excuse my language, but they're overstressed, they can't focus, they can't do everything, and they're just, wearing themselves into the ground. And Bonpu Zen, which is what we're basically going to be focusing on in this course, is a very much practical basis of dealing with the outer stresses and strains of life, and kind of through that optimizing our performance as well. Kensho is insight meditation, which is really to do with awakening or enlightenment, and that is much more to do with basically coming into a greater awareness of self, of the nature of who you are. So we don't touch really too much on that in this course, that's the other course. Mindfulness. Does anybody know what mindfulness is, because that's the other half of the term of the course, meditation mindfulness.
It's in the moment.
Yeah, basically. I mean, so mindfulness is being consciously choosing to be present in the moment without judgment, so that you are open and aware, that you're not sitting there going, I wish I had a pair of trousers like that, or a hairstyle like that, or why do those cars keep going by? You know, you don't have anything that you could call an assessment of other things in the world. It's like an observer that is uninfluenced by the world. They just see what's going on. So mindfulness, it's the important part of it. It's conscious awareness. It's choosing to be aware in the moment. So the meditation practices we're going to do are going to be mindfully orientated, but also the reason why we call it meditation and mindfulness is because as the course unfolds, we will also be doing what you might think of as sort of like a mindful state of movement. So you can do mindful walking, you can do mindful running, mindful swimming. You know, it's a state of awareness. So, and one of the great Zen masters of the 17th century, a chap called Hakuin, used to say that mindfulness or meditation in practice is 1,000 times more effective and powerful than sitting meditation. So, in practice, though, what we're looking at here is both. So we're going to be looking at developing a daily habit where for about 25 minutes a day, we will be doing, this is the bit that's really important, every day, trying to find a bit where you can do a practice of that, and then as the weeks go on, we will start to introduce little mindful activities, short ones, to do throughout the day as well. Because if you think of it, or at least the way I like to think of it, is that having a solid 25 minutes or thereabouts practice of sitting in stillness, in silence, really allows the dust to settle. So if you get if you turn the tap on and you've got overly high pressure or something, it gets air into the water, and you pour a glass and it's all cloudy. If you think of yourself a bit like that cloudy glass of water, if you leave it there to stand, it will gradually settle and clear. And that is really why we try to do a reasonable length. So a lot of the apps like Calm and Headspace will give you 10-minute intro meditation. I'm not knocking it, but the problem is that for the most part what you're getting is a relaxation exercise, because you don't really start to get into the deeper levels of practice, and for most people, until at least a few minutes have gone by. It takes time for that fizzy water to start to settle and clear. So if you only do it for 10 minutes, there's a very good chance that you won't start to notice the benefits during it, and therefore the incentive to keep going will potentially diminish. Okay? Saying that, the most important thing is actually trying to do it every day if you can, because we're trying to develop a habit, a new embedded habit. Anyhow, so with mindfulness can be external, it can be internal, it can be active, and it can be passive. So external mindfulness, anybody got any idea what on earth I'm talking about? Just looking at your expression, Karen. Do, by the way, although I'm doing this a bit like a monologue at the moment, please feel free to ask questions at any time. No? Okay. External mindfulness. If you were, for example, to make yourself a cup of tea, you can be making yourself a cup of tea and you can be going, so, Michelle, how was your day today? Was it all right? Everything go well? What have you done? And actually, you're on autopilot making the tea. Yeah, you've done it so many times, you don't really, and if you might even finish making the tea and you hand her tea over to Michelle and she goes, oh, I didn't want milk in it. And you go, oh, did I put milk in it? Because you didn't even engage with it that fully. So that is being mindful of an outer scenario. So that is an active, you're doing something, and if you're doing it mindfully, then that is an external active mindfulness thing. So in Japan, again, have you ever heard of the tea ceremony? So the tea ceremony is takes this to the absolute nth degree, and it is an extremely precise, very careful, very deliberate, stage after stage of ritual. And what that does is it builds this present moment awareness. So it's not that of itself making a cup of tea is all that important, but actually engaging with what you're doing in life as each second of your life goes by is really important. If one rushes like a hamster on a hamster wheel through life, we get to the end and we go, pop our clogs. This is about engaging with life, really knowing in each moment what is happening, choosing to wake up to the present moment. And so we do that by deliberately selecting things, activities, or even just an external passive mindfulness is listening to the cars go by, listening to music, looking at a rose. You're just taking in the things around you.
So as a practitioner, are you mindful all the time?
No.
No.
And I'm not suggesting, so as I said, I have a Zen master as my teacher. I wouldn't even like to speculate whether he is mindful all the time. He's certainly, I am absolutely sure, considerably more mindful than, more of the time than I am, and I am certainly more mindful than I used to be. And that's the bit that really matters. So this is not really a course where you do your 8 weeks and I'll sign a signature and say, congratulations, you passed. You're now mindful. This is a process. This is a lifelong process. And actually, the only time that you will stop, if you keep walking this particular path, that you will stop growing and developing and becoming more alive, more aware, is when you die. So don't think of it being an end point, and the interesting thing about your question, Karen, is that it's a really natural one, because we are so used to thinking in a linear, progressive, achieving things way especially in the Western world. And this is kind of like the opposite. This is actually about letting go rather than trying to achieve, because so much of our lives has been orientated towards attaining things or status or whatever. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those things, but if you're looking for happiness, if you're looking for contentment and ease, then actually knowing how to disconnect from that at least some of the time, disconnect from the need for more, is really, really important for your health. And we'll come to, probably next week, into why that is really. But there are sort of medical reasons why it's really, really important. So internal mindfulness is very much that sort of capacity to look within at what is happening in your life moment by moment, in the sense that those responses, those internal responses to things that are happening. So let's say, for the sake of argument, I'm going to pick on Michelle for a second. Let's say Michelle starts looking at me like this, like with disdain, okay? It's quite possible that I, in my mind, my wonderfully intricate little mind, will sort of go, oh well, gosh, and I start to think of all the things that Michelle might or might not be having as an issue. Okay, my processing plant goes into overdrive. Now, that's not necessarily all that helpful, but if I'm being mindful of the fact that as long as Michelle is comfortable and happy, and then I can ask her whether she's okay. She says, yes, I'm fine. Then me projecting onto myself what I think she might be trying to say to me, there's a degree of mindfulness there. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, does that, just as a broad sense of things, make sense and what meditation and mindfulness is? That we're going to become open, aware, we're going to allow things to happen, and we're going to bring that into the activities in our lives as well. And we're going to do that by showing you why we're doing it, and by you practicing day after day after day until it starts to become really, really apparent. I had somebody on a course about 2 years ago, and she's actually, you can look up exactly what she said because it's written, copied from her email on the testimonials on the website. And she came on the course and she was suffering badly with anxiety. She was actually a nurse working through COVID. And she was absolutely stressed out and worried as could possibly be. This was this had been during the early stages. Actually, when I ran the course, it was getting better. But she was seeing people all day. She was then going home to her family, and she was concerned she was going to kill her children, and it was spiraling out of control. And she was on quite strong anxiety medication. She came to the course. Within, I think it was 2 weeks, she had pretty much stopped taking her medication. And I have to say, I did not suggest she stop taking her medication, and if anybody is on medication, I am not suggesting that you do either. I'm not a doctor. I am not saying that this is something that, hey man, you don't need to take any medicines. It's not like that. But what I'm saying is that she started to feel so much better, and she was a nurse, so she felt responsible enough to make that decision for herself. But it takes a bit of time, it takes a little bit of commitment, and then you start to see it all happen. So the good news, does anybody know what neuroplasticity is? You can retrain the brain, absolutely. Yeah, those old expressions of, leopard never changes its spots, or, all that stuff. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's actually rubbish. It's true to say that the older we get, I think that it's slower for us to reprogram our brain, but yeah, we can definitely retrain the way that we think, and that is really what this course is going to be about. It's going to be about reorientating you so that you can start to experience and notice what it's like to be more at ease, more accepting of life around you. And that should help with sleep. It should help with, I'm trying to remember, you said it was not, you've got a lot on your mind, a chattering mind.
Busyness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, busyness in one form or another is often what leads to sleep deprivation as well. And then you worry about it, and that makes it even worse. Or you go and drink lots of alcohol to try and calm yourself down, which means you don't sleep very well, which means that you wake up tired the next day, and so on and so on and so on. And it's a vicious cycle. So I'm not saying that there isn't space for, or the reality that all of those things to some extent are likely to keep going in your life for some time. But we're talking about giving you tools to manage and diminish the dependency on those things. Does that all make sense? Yeah. Good. Okay. Now we're going to look at some tips and tricks for getting you your habit well established as future meditators. And it is good to sort of plan ahead with all of this. So what we want to look at is, well, one of the first questions that people often think, which you've sort of kind of picked up on, how long does it take to become a meditator? So you sort of said, am I mindful all the time? Which is a slightly different question, but it's kind of similar. How long does it take to develop a habit? A meditation habit, specifically in this case. Well, there's been a lot of research on it. You can pick up books that will tell you all sorts of different answers. And I'm only going to give you one that I happen to like, but some people say 30 days, some people say 60 days. We have decided to establish the tradition of 100 days as being a really good grounded basis. That if you do something for 100 days straight, you've got it pretty well embedded, okay? Those journals have, if you want to look at them, they've got every day, there is a day written out. Day one, there's sort of, there is also, actually, just to give this, do this in a sensible order. If you look at the front, there's how to use this journal. There's that, the QR code if you want to use those, or the web page, which says zenskills.co.uk/1-z. So the meditations, these are all going to be guided meditations throughout this course, okay? You're not gonna, they get less talking as we go on, but they will be guided throughout, and there's audio versions of them that you can listen to when you're at home through that. But, going back to what I was saying, every day has a numbered day on it. And the length of the course, because it's basically 7 weeks and 1 day from, for the 8-week course, if you see what I mean. So, it takes you basically halfway through 100 days. So, you can take a notepad after that, but you'll be in the habit of doing these things, and you can then just note down in a notepad the next 50 days. One of the things that there's been quite a lot of research on as well is journaling. It's the importance of journaling, is it gives you a really good focal point for actually embedding any practice. So as you go through these different days, there are extra little tasks that are added, not lots of them, but and there's also a percentage sign at the end of the notes that you write on after your meditation. So you do your meditation. When you've finished your meditation, take out your notebook, hold a pen over that bit of the paper until such time as something comes out of your mind that you want to write down. It can be anything. Like, that felt good today. Or, I think I fell asleep halfway through. Do you know? Doesn't matter. It's only for you. But the more you write, it's a bit like telling dreams, I always think. The more you start to explain what happened in a dream, the more you remember. So the more you connect with it, just write anything down. And the percentage is, again, just for you as a sort of benchmark. Do you know, how would I have rated my practice today in terms of its beneficialness? Was that like 50%, 80%? It's just there as a sort of bit of a way to mark it throughout the course. So, any questions on that aspect of journaling? If you have, you can always ask later if you want to.
This is 30 minutes of practice every day, but including all these other...
Yeah. So, well, the sitting meditation, it's roughly. Sitting meditation is basically, the recorded sitting meditation lasts 25 minutes. And you'll spend a couple of minutes writing some notes. And then the other things, they're kind of things you will fit in during your day. Like when you choose to, and we'll come on to this later, we're not doing this straight off, but when we come to it, you, for example, it's just thinking to yourself, okay, today I am going to mindfully, when I make myself that cup of tea, I'm going to do it mindfully. It doesn't take any longer. In fact, sometimes it takes less time because you're actually being really efficient because you're not being distracted by anything else. Or when I brush my teeth, I'm going to brush my teeth mindfully, or showering. And just, so when I say that, let's say you decide to do a mindfully shower. Okay, now normally when you're in the shower, when I'm in the shower, let's say, rather than suggest that anybody else how they do their showers, the sort of default setting for a lot of people having a shower is, okay, what am I going to make myself for lunch today? And is work going to be busy? And and you're not actually really showering. I mean, you are physically, but you're not connecting with it at all. If instead you turn the shower on and you just move into the feeling sensations of what hot water feels like rushing over, maybe how different it feels in the parts of your body that aren't wet. The sensation of the soap, the sound of the water coming over you. The reason we do all of this is because when you just connect with sensations, firstly, you are connecting with life as it's happening with you, but also you're less prone to have the monkey mind taking you off on a journey. If you're choosing to connect, you know, if I was to say to you all right now, take your awareness to your feet, to the feeling of your feet on the ground. When in the moments that you feel the feeling of your feet on the ground now, it's much harder for thoughts about other things to come into your head. And when they do, it's usually because you stop thinking about your feet on the ground and you have a thought, and then you go back to thinking about your feet on the ground. But actually, when you're just in a state of awareness for the physical sensation, thoughts are less prone to arrive. And so the more you move into sensation, into awareness of what is coming in through the senses, the more it's an experiential thing rather than being carried away, imagining what this would be like if you were on holiday in Greece or whatever. So, we've looked at how long it will take. We haven't looked at that actually. How long will it take to establish? I haven't really answered that at all. There isn't a definitive answer, but 100 days is what we aim for. The best indication that you've really got your habit embedded will be when you miss a day, or you miss it. Let's say you do it in the morning. You don't have to, but let's say you do it in the morning and you get into a real rush, and by lunchtime you're there thinking, oh God, I feel like I didn't do my meditation today. It's hardly surprising I feel like this. So when it feels stranger that you're not meditating, when you miss a day, than it does the other way around, you've really got the habit embedded. But that's the best indicator that, you know, that it's now part of your life. It's a bit like brushing your teeth. You know, if you miss a day, it feels pretty yucky. Any questions? So pause for a drink.
So the time of day really is personal.
Yeah, so we've looked at that. Let's say 100 days or feels odd if you miss it. Yep. Journaling, so that's 1. 2, journaling. I think we've covered that one enough. Journaling. Probably start on with. What was the question you just asked? Sorry.
Time of day.
Time of day.
Is it individual? You know, it's whatever works for you.
Yeah. So there. Actually, time of day and place.
Because I thought beginning of the day is it work for the day.
So, there's all sorts of things that you can say are the optimum way of doing it, but I'm going to say it kind of depends on what your circumstances are. So, for example, it may be that if you get very stressed during the day, that starting off with a meditation to make sure that you're really grounded and present and at ease is a really good way to start the day, and it is. If, like Michelle, you struggle with sleeping, it may be that actually doing it in the evening might work better for her. It is also maybe that if you start your working day at 4 a.m, squeezing in a meditation in the morning might be a challenge. So I would say that for most people, meditating pretty much first thing in the morning is going to be the easiest thing to do, because if you imagine that glass of water is your state of being, that cloudy glass of water. If you've gone through an entire day of interactions that can be stressful, that glass of water is going to be really, really cloudy, and it's going to take longer to get it to calm down. If you've just woken up, you're probably going to start to feel more at ease quicker. So it's not to say that there's more or less benefit from doing it in the morning or the evening, but you might experience the benefit more quickly, or more, it might be more obvious if you're doing it in the morning. But it doesn't mean that doing it in the evening, I haven't said you want to do it in the evening, but the other thing you can do it in both. I don't object if you want to do it in the morning and in the evening.
That was my next question. I mean, could you do it multiple times?
Yeah, you can, of course you can, yeah. But the most important thing I would say to start with, so first on that point, I would suggest, if you possibly can whilst you're doing this course, just do the practices that we're doing, rather than doing, as Ben said about headspace and things. I would try to avoid doing any other. You know, in 3 months' time, if you want to pick up the odd headspace thing or whatever, fine. But try to just stick to these practices for now. But if you want to do it more than once, that's fine. I would, to start with though, I would definitely limit it to 2. Because what we want to do is have a sustained pattern. If you think you can do it morning and night every day, then that's fine. But try to get a stable, steady pattern, because that's just habit forming, okay? The same with the place that you do it. So these are all optimum ways of doing it, is to have the same place, the same time, roughly, 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, 8:30. You know, you don't have to set an alarm clock and be exact, but just try to have a pretty sort of, you know, you don't want to sort of wake up one morning and think, oh, well, I'll do it now, but then tomorrow I'm going to do it at lunchtime, the day after I'll do it at tea time, then I'll do it at night, and then, do you know what I mean? Because again, it's harder to establish a habit. Once you get your habit fully embedded, it kind of becomes less problematic. But whilst we're trying to establish a habit, try and do it when you can, do it in the same place and the same time of day. But don't not do it because you're not in the same place, okay? Yeah. Any questions, other questions on that? Does that make sense? Excellent. If you miss a day, how bad is that, Jimmy? Okay. Okay. If you miss a day, it's not the end of the world. But what we say is that we're trying to establish a habit that's 100 days. So if you're on day 30 and you miss day 31, just start back at day 1. That's all. Now, you may think that sounds a little bit like, what? But the thing is, that you're setting up a habit for life anyway, so what difference does it make? You know? You want to do this for life, and it's for the... Yeah, you start back at 1. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many thousands of days I've been doing it for, but if I miss a day and I start again at 1, it doesn't really make any difference because I've got no plans to stop. Do you know what I mean? So...
I suppose I'm in a position where I don't even know what it is really, so I don't know whether I want to continue for 100 days or not.
Sure.
So if I get
Well, it's going to change.
a day, then it's going to be...
It's going to change. So, missing a day's practice. So, let me put the next thing up. If you miss a day, it's not the end of the world. If you miss 2 days in a row, you're starting a new habit called missing days. So really try not to miss more than 1 day. Try not to miss any days, but really try not to miss more than 1 day in a row. The thing that I'm going to say, in terms of what you just said, which is what we call read that. I think that's about right correctly. The plateau of latency. So, does anybody know what I mean by that? So, illustrated graph. A lot of things in life you might think go day 1, 2, 3, you know, this is getting better, what you do. Most people say, well, that's how I expect my progress to be. Each day goes on, I'm going to get better and better and better. With meditation, it's a bit more like this. Okay? So this is what we call the plateau of latency. As in, when you first start, doing one meditation is not going to change your state of being. Doing it every day for a week, you'll start to notice the differences. But it's going to take you a few weeks of doing it every day before you actually start to think, I can see why I'm doing this. I can notice the difference, okay? So having an expectancy that you're going through the motions to start with, and you may, and this isn't something that, I mean, hopefully you will find this a pleasant experience, but this isn't about doing something because it's like joyriding or whatever. It's not something that's meant to give you a thrill, it's just meant to relax you. So if you just don't expect things to change overnight. I also think it's a very good idea to plan for failure. So if you set up your thing that you're going to meditate at 7 o'clock every morning, what happens if your alarm doesn't go off? Or what happens if something different than your normal routine happens tomorrow? You've got an early morning meeting, you've got this, you've got that. Plan for failure. So this will mean that this aspect probably has to shift a bit. Okay? For example, I used to work near the centre of East Grinstead and near the church that's in the centre. And although I'm not a churchgoer, I used to, this is especially the case when I started doing this, if I ran late in the mornings and I couldn't meditate, I would think to myself, I will go at lunchtime and I will find a little quiet pew, and there's not a service on, in the church, and I would just go and sit there and meditate. So I would have I'm not saying that's what everybody else should do, I'm just saying having another plan or thinking, well, I know that if I can't do it this morning, I'll be able to do it this evening.
So I'm hard to work at the moment, so either at home where I could probably establish a routine, but then I'm on the train at like 7:20 in the morning going to London. Can you do it on the train, or is it best to do it?
Okay, so yes, you can. If the lying down meditation, obviously, you're not probably going to want to lie down on the train for the first 2 weeks. You can do the meditation we're going to do sitting.
Yep.
So, yes, I mean, I would suggest that if you, on those occasions you feel that you can do the meditation lying down, this is just the first 2 weeks, then do it lying down. But if you're running out of time and you think, I'll do it on the train, as long as you can expect the fact that the ticket collector is going to come along at some point and ask for your ticket. But if you put headphones on and you sit comfortably and do it sitting down, you can do it like that as well. Yeah. So that's a good plan B.
Pre or post coffee?
Pre or post coffee, whatever you like. Yeah.
It's an important consideration for most things in the morning.
To be honest, I generally have a coffee first, and that's my habit. I mean, when I quite often go on retreat, so when I go on retreat, I often don't have time for a coffee because you can start at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. But when I have the option to, I like to have a coffee, and it doesn't seem to disturb my practice. So the thing is that although it's a stimulant, being aware and awake is part of this. This is not, meditation is not sleep.
Yeah.
So actually being alert is quite important.
I can imagine if I woke up in the morning and then tried to meditate, I would just fall asleep.
Yeah. So we don't want that. And we're also going to look at things to try and avoid that.
I would share some of myself.
Yeah. So, and then lastly is a thing that we call, I'm just going to use hands as well. habit stacking or substitution. Habit stacking or habit substitution. So habit stacking is what else do you do? Let's say, just for an example, let's say you're going to meditate in the morning. What else do you do in the morning? You probably brush your teeth. So if you tie in, either you brush your teeth immediately after you've meditated or immediately before you've meditated, you're stacking your new habit with an established habit. Yeah? You're associating the two, and it helps embed it into your mind. Substitution might be, well, actually at the moment I wake up and I spend half an hour looking at social media while I'm having my breakfast. Might be an idea that social media tends to take you down a mental rabbit hole, to substitute something else in that slot instead. But entirely up to you. These are just helpful tips to embed a practice. Does that all help? I'm going to suggest now, for the next few minutes, before we go on to practice, which we will do very, very shortly, is if you can turn to your journal and taking into account all these things on page, the first sort of largely blank page, that one is just been right on the top, setting our intention. I'm just going to suggest that in the spirit of journaling, if you want to write down what your intentions, obviously, Steve, taking into account the fact that you don't know whether you're going to want to keep going after you've done it once, but intention, you know, it may or may not turn out that way. How you, in the more detail you want to put, let's spend 3 minutes or 4 minutes or something, writing down when you think you're going to do it, where you think you're going to do it. Oh, one other thing that can be quite useful, if you think you might forget to do it, if you've taken time and place, if you think to yourself, place is quite a useful thing. So if you think to yourself, I'm going to do it on the chair at the end of the bed, or I'm going to do it in my study or wherever, is to actually, especially if it's a place that you go to usually in the morning, is to leave your journal on the chair or a meditation cushion when you get to that stage. You know, you basically leave visual clues to remind you that this is what you're going to be doing. So if you just want to think for a minute, you're going to, so bear in mind to start with, you're going to be lying down. So you might want to do it in bed, you might want to do it somewhere else. Just finishing off on the next line or two if you can. You can always come back to it. Okay. Is everybody reasonably comfortable about how they're going to start off? Ish. See how it goes. So commitment and consistency are pretty important to make this worthwhile. But within that, you need to appreciate that there are inevitably going to be days that it's tougher, days that it's easier, days that it seems more fruitful, other days when it's like, why the hell did I bother doing that? Didn't seem to make any difference. But know that the thing is, A, as I say, the pattern of latency, you may not notice the effects immediately, plus it's also building a habit, and so you are doing good, doing it every day. If you run out of time completely, and you have to stop halfway through, it's better to do some than none.
Would you set a timer?
Well, if you're using the audio, so the guided meditation, what we're going to be starting with is what's called a body scan. If you've done yoga, you might have done a body scan before. This will probably be more detailed, a body scan, than you normally do, but this is a body scan to start with. So if you're using the audio, which you're likely to do to start with, it does make it kind of easier as well. Sorry, what was the question again? I've gone off on my own little rabbit hole.
It was saying 25 minutes.
Yeah, so it lasts 25 minutes. But I actually think with people's work and things involved, where's my phone? It's up there. If you get there's very good apps that you can do, or you just have an alarm on your clock as well, on your phone, or whatever, I think it's a good idea. It will last within a second of 25 minutes, the recordings that I do. And I'm fairly sure from memory I put a little, one of these in at the end. But it was a while ago I recorded them, so I can't honestly remember. But yes, so set an alarm for the first time just to make sure whether you need it. Set it for 26 minutes so that, if you keep going, it'll wake you up. Especially if you've got work afterwards. But once you've kind of got the gist of it, of how to do it, you can do these yourself without the audio. So, for example, and then it becomes easier if, for example, if you manage to do it with the audio recording, let's just say for the first week, 25 minutes every time, and then on day 8 or 10 or something like that, you suddenly think, oh my God, I've actually only got 16 minutes before I've got to leave. Then set an alarm for 16 minutes and do it in your own mind. And give that a try. And that would be a good opportunity if you do that, to then think to yourself, and I'll do it again this evening as a sort of extra thing. I'm not saying you have to do any of these things, but the main thing as you appreciate is that there's getting the benefit and there is the habit building. So, and if you build the habit, then the rest will start to unfold over time anyway. But yeah, expect that there will be days when it's not so great, and there'll be other days when you think, oh God, that was so good, I feel so much better. And you'll get more of those days. But even when you've been practicing for years, there will be days when you're just like, all you're aware of is your mind swirling. But that's part of the practice too, because paying attention to your swirling mind is, that's part of the process. So you're not trying to stop it, it is how it is. Okay, now lastly, before we go into practice, I'll just very lightly touch on postures, because we will cover that in week 3. But posture is important, how we sit or lie and things, for various reasons. Partly because of how it makes us feel. So, for sake of argument, if everybody's willing to stand up for a second. Now, Ben, please don't take this offensively, because you're the youngest member of the group here, and it might sound offensive, but the archetype I have is a... have you ever seen Kevin and Perry, the thing on television? The sort of disgruntled 13-year-old, and you're obviously much, much older than that, but I'm deliberately going young to make it not so personal. And how he would stand, okay? So you stand like a pissed-off teenager. How does that feel? And then you stand like a hero, and you think, how does that feel? And you notice that there is a psychological, psychosomatic, whatever it is, there's a difference. How we have our bearing affects our minds. The other thing that's really important is that in meditation, we might just stay standing up, so we're going to go and lie down in a second, is breathing. Breathing plays quite a significant part in meditation. We're not doing what's called pranayama, which is forced breathing exercises. We're doing very gentle breathing. Now, in some meditation traditions, they focus on breathing through the nostrils, the feeling the air going in and out through the nostrils. We don't tend to do that in Zen. We tend to focus on the belly, what's called the hara. And the reason we do that is that, and we'll come on to this in a bit more detail later on, but it actually, breathing in the belly is a much more relaxed thing to do. So when you have abdominal breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing, so the diaphragm is the main thing that moves the belly up and down, up and out, so up and in or down and out, I can't remember which way around it goes. Anyhow, you know, basically breathing through your belly relaxes you. Breathing in your chest is causes you to go. You can't expand your chest as much as your belly, so you generally breathe. You send signals to your brain that there's panic. Okay, so that's not relaxing. If when we come to sitting meditation, you sit like this, do you think that makes your breathing good or bad? Because it's all crushed in. Yeah, so again, open posture is important for just getting that sense of allowing the lungs to just naturally rise. So, everybody ready to do a bit of practice? Yeah, anybody else who wants water? Anybody wants to go to the loo now, Ruby? I'm going to whisk to the loo as well. So if you want to make sure you just get yourselves comfortable, there are blankets in the corner, there's a few cushions and things if you need any extras. Just get yourselves comfortable and lie down.